You walk into a Mexican restaurant in the US. You already know what's coming before you sit down. Chips, salsa, a basket of flour tortillas, a combo plate of rice and beans crammed on the side. Comforting, consistent, and maybe 10% of what Mexico actually eats. Because if you've been ordering hard-shell tacos, chimichangas, queso dip, or even chili con carne and calling it authentic Mexican, you're in for a surprise. All of that is Tex-Mex, invented in the US, not Mexico. So let's go region by region and find out what Mexico actually eats. And one of these 7 regions is my absolute favorite. You'll know it when we get there. Baja California, fish tacos and wine country. We start at the top on the Pacific side. The fish taco was born in Ensenada, where fishermen started battering whatever came off the boat that morning and wrapping it in a warm tortilla. It's now one of Mexico's most exported dishes, and almost nobody ordering one in California knows the city that invented it. Here's one you didn't see coming. Caesar salad, one of America's most popular salads and widely assumed to be Italian, was actually born in Tijuana, Baja California's largest city, invented in 1924 by an Italian immigrant named Cesar Cardini. Baja's also quietly become serious wine country. Valle de Guadalupe produces some of Mexico's best wines, and a movement called Baja Med has spent 2 decades fusing Mediterranean technique with Pacific seafood. Strong start. But it's not the region I'm teasing. Keep going. Northern Mexico, beef country. Head inland, Sonora, Chihuahua, Nuevo Leon, and the food shifts entirely. This is cattle country, and it eats like it. Carne asada, literally grilled meat in Spanish, isn't a menu item here, it's a weekend ritual. Cabrito, a roasted milk-fed young goat, is Monterrey's signature dish, and I never realized milk-fed goat was that much more tender than grass-fed, until I learned about cabrito. Probably why it's treated more like a cultural icon than a menu item in Nuevo Leon. If you try one thing from this region, make it this. Long before refrigeration, this desert region needed a way to keep beef from spoiling, so cooks developed machaca, meat dried and shredded under the sun, then rehydrated with eggs or peppers. Northern Mexico's original beef jerky, centuries before the word existed. And here's a border crossover you've probably eaten without knowing it: the Sonoran hot dog. Bacon wrapped, piled with pinto beans, tomato, onion, mayo, and jalapeno sauce, invented in Hermosillo, Sonora's largest city, and it crossed into Arizona so completely that Tucson treats it like a local food group. Grilled meat, tender goat over open flame, and a hot dog that outflavors everything else on this list. Sounds like my kind of food. The Bajío, tequila, birria, and the Sunday hangover cure. Keep moving south into Jalisco, Michoacán, and Guanajuato, the Bajío, and you hit 2 of Mexico's most famous exports. Tequila is legally only tequila if it's made from blue agave, grown in a protected zone around the town of Tequila, Jalisco. Everything else is agave spirit wearing a costume. Then there's birria, and its backstory is stranger than you'd expect. As the story goes, when the Spanish introduced goats to Jalisco, the animals had no natural predators and multiplied out of control. Indigenous cooks needed a use for all that meat, and goat is famously gamey, so they built a stew strong enough to bury the flavor entirely. Dried chilies, cumin, cinnamon, bay leaf, simmered for hours. What started as damage control became one of the most loved dishes to cross into the US in the last decade, now usually served as birria tacos, dipped in their own consommé. Michoacán, meanwhile, gave the world carnitas, pork simmered low in its own fat until it falls apart. If Jalisco invented the party, Michoacán invented what you eat the next morning to nurse the hangover. I love the Bajío's food, but it's not my favorite. We're getting warmer, though. Central Mexico, Mexico City, and Puebla. Central Mexico is the melting pot, indigenous, Spanish, and eventually immigrant influences, all landing in the same kitchen. Mole poblano, the dark, complex sauce built from chilies, spices, and chocolate, yes, chocolate, is Puebla's signature, credited to nuns at the convent of Santa Rosa improvising a dish for a visiting archbishop. Can't confirm that happened exactly like that, but it's the story Puebla tells, so I'm including it. Here's the part that'll get comments. Tacos al pastor, arguably the most iconic taco in Mexico City, didn't originate in Mexico. Lebanese immigrants arrived in Puebla and Mexico City in the early 1900s and brought shawarma with them, meat stacked on a vertical spit, shaved off in thin layers. Mexican cooks swapped lamb for pork, added achiote, a natural orange-red seasoning made from annatto seeds, and pineapple, and the trompo was born. So the single most Mexican taco most Americans picture is a 100-year-old remix of a Lebanese dish. Mexico took it and made it completely its own, which might be the most Mexican thing about it. If that twist got you, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps a channel this size and it costs you nothing. Veracruz and the Gulf Coast. Cross east to the Gulf Coast, and the influences change again. Spanish and Afro-Caribbean, layered onto the coast where the conquistador Cortés first landed. Huachinango a la Veracruzana, a classic Veracruz fish dish, combines cooking methods from Spain and indigenous Mexico, red snapper simmered in tomatoes, olives, and capers, tasting more Mediterranean than anything else in Mexico. Veracruz is also responsible for two ingredients the world can't live without: vanilla and cacao. Vanilla is native to this coast, first cultivated by the Totonac people around Papantla centuries before Europe knew it existed. And this same stretch of coastline is where cacao first left Mexico for Spain in the 1500s, not the beginning of cacao itself, since Mesoamericans had grown and drunk it for thousands of years already, but the beginning of its journey into what the world now calls chocolate. Two of the most beloved flavors on the planet, and they both walked out of the same Gulf port. Oaxaca, the mole capital. This is the region people plan entire trips around. Oaxaca packs a continent's worth of diversity into one state. A world-class culinary capital, deeply preserved indigenous cultures, dramatic mountain ranges, and a Pacific coastline. Oaxaca has 7 distinct moles, not one, ranging from black to yellow to green, each built on a completely different chili and spice base, some running upward of 30 ingredients. It's also home to mezcal, tequila's smokier cousin, made from a wider range of agave varieties, traditionally roasted in underground pits lined with volcanic rock, which is where that signature smoke actually comes from. And don't forget tlayudas, Oaxaca's answer to pizza. If you squint, a giant crisp tortilla loaded with beans, cheese, and meat. I covered this one in my Every Country's Pizza video. Links up top if you want to see where it landed. And if you're feeling brave, chapulines, toasted grasshoppers seasoned with chili and lime, are a real Oaxacan snack food sold by the bagful in local markets. Not a stunt, just a genuinely protein-dense, low-carb snack, the way peanuts are somewhere else. I'm not sure I'd swap my daily protein shake for a bag of these, but I'd try them once just to see. Would you? Let me know in the comments. Yucatan, the region that doesn't feel like Mexico. The Yucatan Peninsula sits closer to Cuba than to Mexico City, and for most of its history it was cut off from the rest of the country by jungle, with no real road connecting it to central Mexico until the 20th century. That's probably why the food here still feels untouched, not diluted the way so much of the rest of the country's cuisine has been. It was so isolated it briefly broke away entirely. The Republic of Yucatan existed as its own independent nation from 1841 to 1848 before rejoining Mexico. The food never fully rejoined either. It still runs on Maya tradition more than the Aztec-influenced cooking of the rest of the country, and I'll always be a sucker for anything tied to Maya civilization. Yucatan cuisine leans hard on achiote and naranja agria, sour orange. Naranja is Spanish for orange, and it traces back to the Sanskrit word naranga. I couldn't confirm a solid connection between Georgia's khachapuri and India's puri in my previous video, but I can confirm this one. Oranges migrated from South Asia through the Middle East to Spain, and eventually to Mexico, and the name traveled right along with the fruit. Cochinita pibil, the iconic slow-roasted pork, marinated in sour orange and achiote, wrapped in banana leaf, traditionally cooked in an underground pit called a pib, is the region's signature. It's a direct continuation of Maya cooking technique, not a colonial import. This is the one. Cochinita pibil is, to me, the best single dish on this entire list. Sour orange, slow-cooked pork against a bright habanero salsa. Pair it with sopa de lima, a lime and turkey soup you won't find replicated much outside the peninsula, and you've got a cuisine that genuinely feels like a different country wearing the same flag. Yucatan food is also famous for its heat, thanks to one of my favorite peppers, the habanero. It didn't actually originate here, its genetic roots traced to the Amazon basin in South America, but Yucatan is where it became iconic, cultivated for centuries into the pepper the region's now known for. And if you haven't noticed my excitement already, this is my favorite region in Mexico for food, thanks to its Maya roots and the fact that it's the spiciest region in the country. That's every Mexican region and its food. Mexican food was never one menu. It's coastline seafood in Baja, cattle country, and Sonoran hot dogs up north, birria and tequila in the Bajío, mole and a 100-year-old Lebanese taco in the capital, vanilla and cacao on the Gulf Coast, 7 moles in Oaxaca, and Maya pit cooking in a peninsula that once tried to leave the country entirely. 7 regions, 1 border, not one cuisine. Tell me in the comments which region I undersold. If you like the Americans think this is Mexican angle from the Tex-Mex bit up top, I did a full video on that exact idea for Italian food. The link's up here. Next week, we're running this same format on Japan. Subscribe if you don't want to miss it. See you in the next video.